Hello everyone, welcome back to this drawing challenge. We are on week 6 for days 31 to 36, and we are around our O's and P's and R's. For day 31, I'll be drawing Opal and I will be doing another art style study. This is going to be the last one in the challenge, and this time the artist whom I will be studying the works of, is Didas. Some things I noticed was that he uses a lot of blue. It is the most prominent thing about his work, and ironically, it is on the opposite side of the color wheel to the color brown, and it's also much lighter in value compared to it. I found that kind of funny. The background tends to be more simple, geometric, and in some ways monochrome or analogous, and it's often blue, again, which is good for Opal. In his spilled ink works, his stuff is more inspired by shonen, and he draws more guys. This part isn't really important for me to draw Opal, but it was something that I found pretty neat. His emphasis is on, of course, his use of colors, especially because in the spilled ink thumbnails, I believe he's usually the one who's coloring them, and in his spilled ink works, his coloring is so much more impressionistic and fantastical, and his use of colors is stunning. For this study, I will be looking more into his digital works. And speaking of the study, I stuck with a minimal, paler color and color palette. I added some lines to give texture to the bookstore, the background, and the sofa. And I made the bookshelves in the back lineless, just for my preference to give a more dollhouse print feel. And this drawing was overall a pretty pleasant experience, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So here's day 31, Opal. The other day I was using my left hand for a variety of random tasks, and I thought to myself, why don't I use my left hand to draw Panda for day 32? It's kind of good that I thought of this because even though I had the prompt set up, I wasn't exactly sure of the direction that I wanted to go for Panda's drawing. I wish I turned off stabilizer because it did make some of the lines more controlled. However, because I was using my left hand to do things, and the left hand was still trickier to use, it forced me to simplify my strokes. And I applied some lines to give the texture like I had for Opal's drawing yesterday, and the hair was pretty fun to shade. I like the little screen line scribbles that I put on Panda's bangs. And overall, I still did this with my left hand, so it doesn't look as, what is it? Beautifully beautiful as a normal piece would. But I think for the left hand it still turned out good. I actually wish it looked messier. I really wish I hadn't used a stabilizer. It wasn't until I finished the piece that I realized that I should have used stabilizer. Anyways, here is day 32, Panda. On day 33, we'll be focusing more on Pierre this time, and I just want to say that planning his drawing and planning the composition and what I wanted the mood of the piece to look like took such a long while. I would say it's probably what took most of the time to actually create the piece, but I had so much fun exploring the concept ideas and develop what story I had in mind for this certain aspect that the piece is exploring. I took I took inspiration from Sumiko Gurashi to make the plushies near the open window, as you can see by the little onigiri and the chef-looking round thing in the back. I had a lot of fun customizing the place. I kind of felt like an interior designer putting all the stuff inside. I like interior designing. I would say it's one of my interests. I'm not entirely thrilled with the shading of the background, nor the eyes for Pierre. I was trying to figure out how to go along with this, but on the other hand, I loved adding the scribbles as accents for the hair and to give texture to the background again. I would say overall I'm pretty happy with this piece. Customizing and figuring out what I wanted to do for the background, for the inside of the little home, is probably my favorite part of this piece. I felt like I was decorating it and opening so many more ideas. Anyways, here it is, day 33, Pierre. For day 34, I was inspired by quite a lot of things despite already having a general idea of what I wanted to do for the prompt. I wanted to experiment with different shading methods to include from the different art styles that I've learned and giving a little bit of some tweaks. There's a lot. For the hair, I was inspired by Chaniesa's methods and L'Oreal's and Hanaku's, where I would use some small scribbles and a multiply layer that would follow the lines of the hair rather than the inside of the hair. So it would be following the silhouette instead to give it that 3D look without looking too hyper realistic. For the eyes, I was inspired by Hanaku's methods, Emirichu's, and a mix of the techniques I've already instilled before the challenge started. I used purple for the multiply layer to make the eyes pop out without looking too murky from the black, and some zigzags for the highlights with screen and add layers. As for the overall character shading, I instead wanted to use blues, purples, and pinks and adjust it based on the environment rather than just picking a color directly from the environment. So I decided not to use much oranges and yellows to shade the character because I feel like on a multiply layer it does look rather murky and the pinks does the job without making the character look overall murky. So I'm pretty happy with it, and overall, I would say Promina's test was a success. Here it is for day 34, Prommina. Day 35 was quite serendipitous. I think I said that right. And I would say I'm pretty happy with this piece. It's almost as if I had everything planned for it. I usually do, but my drawings tend to go a little bit haywire from the original idea that I had in mind. So for redo, I wanted to implement what I learned from Promina's drawing the day before, but I wasn't going to be paying as much attention to the eyes this time around. And the outline really helped in making the piece feel more complete. And I definitely want to improve my hair shading and harness that again. And especially my gestures and poses, because I think out of everything in this drawing, making the poses was the hardest part. Otherwise, I couldn't be happier. I was super thrilled to add this melodramatic atmosphere for the piece without making it feel too heavy. And I also loved adding the theatrical lighting from overhead. That was super fun to add. And that's about it for day 35. So here it is, day 35, redo. We are on day 36 of the overall challenge and also on the last drawing for this week. This time I'll be looking at Robin, and her drawing was supposed to help me experiment with the eyes, but it ended up being a more general study that focused on the composition. Similar to Mercedes, I explored harsher motions, and I used a lot of red to give it that red-black color scheme throughout. Also, I wanted to explore different outfits and this time around I was inspired by pre-colonial Filipino Moro armor, and this piece overall pulled me out of my comfort zone. Not entirely to the point where I'd struggled, but I did some things that I normally wouldn't have in an everyday drawing that I would make on my own terms, as if this one isn't. I used more harsher, brighter colors. I emphasized the pen as if it was some sort of ink pen, and I used such different ideas and techniques, but it helped me with some of the stories that I had in mind, and it was such a joy to make overall. I had a lot of fun with Robin's piece. As for week 6, overall, I would say I'm pretty satisfied with how they came out. The pieces were a lot easier around this time, mostly because I wasn't really paying attention to perspective. Redu's drawing was difficult because of the poses and the perspective that they were in, but other than that, these drawings were a lot easier on me. And I feel like because of the fact that I wasn't exploring art styles as much, I was able to establish my own workflow and my own ideas for what I wanted my art style to feel like for me. And of course, more importantly, how I wanted to go about with drawing my pieces. With regards to the OCs, I was able to explore more of their personalities and their characters and the stories that they had to tell and their overall traits that made the OC them, and the stories, of course, that I had behind each and every one of them. And that was probably the best part of these pieces. I'm pretty satisfied with week 6, and I can't wait to see you all for week 7. I'm wishing you all the best. I hope you all have a great day. Bye.